Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us here today. Today, we're going to be talking on a very interesting topic. It's employment-based immigration. We're going to be discussing on self-sponsored green card options. I'm going to be joined today by attorney Ruby Powers. She is our managing attorney. And just a little bit of a background on her. Really cool news. Our firm anniversary is coming up next week, November the 17th. So we're very excited about that. PLG is going to be 11 years old. Whoop, whoop. Party at PLG. She has been licensed since 2008. So, guys, she knows her stuff. 10 out of 10 would recommend, but I could be biased. She also ran her firm from Dubai from 2011 and 2012. So as we know, we have been working remotely because of, the coronavirus. So just know that our clients are getting the best service as we have already faced this remote working before. Another really cool thing about Ruby is she is an author of Build and Manage Your Successful Immigration Law Practice Without Losing Your Mind. So if you or anybody that you know are a business owner, small business owner, friend, relative, what have you, it's a really good read and has really good information on starting your business. A lot of tips and tricks that Ruby has told me that she wished she knew beforehand. So we're just going to go over really quickly our learning objectives, and then our attorney Ruby's going to hop on fairly quickly and then just give you guys the whole spiel. Very quickly, we're going to be discussing today again on our self-sponsored green card options. The first learning topic is what is a self-petitioning green card? Who can apply? What is it? Where you can find it? What it consists of, etc. And the next one is eligibility factors, how you can apply if you are even eligible to self-petition, and the options that you may have. The other one is the application process. And Attorney Powers is going to go in more depth about the application process, how we help our clients apply, what documents you may need to have already prepared for this. So she's going to go over that with you guys. And then we're also going to talk about the natural interest waiver, the consular processing benefits to the self-petitioning green card, the benefits that you get from it. And we'll also share some concluding thoughts along with our Q&A session. So in our Q&A session is when you guys can feel free to join us and ask any questions that you may have. So I am joined now by Attorney Powers, and Attorney, will you take it away?
Sure, I will. If you want to give me co-host, I guess I have it already. I will. I'll go ahead and start sharing the presentation. So thank you all for joining us today. This has been a hot topic in lots of the consultations I've been having the last few months, because people want to know how can they get a green card without employment. There's been high level of layoffs. There's been a lot of uncertainty, and I don't think we've actually seen the extent of the layoffs. I don't think they're done yet. I think we're going to continue to see some more waves of that, unfortunately. So people want to take control in their own hands and see what they can do. Thank you, Dana, so much for my intro. And yeah, I am board certified. We are a full service law firm, and we're excited that the firm's turning 11 next week. My 9-year-old son reminds me that the firm is always a year and a half older than he is. It's hard to compete with that it's always my first child, if you will. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to talk about the two more widely known self-petitioning green cards based off of, I guess you would say, ability or education. And then we'll also mention the EB-5 and the diversity lottery. But for the most part, we're focusing more on the EB-1A and the national interest waiver. Now, this webinar doesn't take the place of a consultation. This can help give you some high-level information on what you can be considering and where to go, and how to be prepared for a consultation if you want to dig deeper and see if you're eligible or your loved one's eligible, or make a plan for the future. Or have a backup plan in case there was some uncertainty with employment or something along those lines. And the other thing, as Dana had mentioned, you can put your questions in the Q&A. We'll try to answer some of the non-super specific questions we can, and if anything else, just feel free to call for us for a consultation. Now, so there's the two classifications of self-petition, and when we say self-petition, we mean like you don't need to have a job offer to do it. And because we know about the ones about like labor certification and perm, and other ways to be petitioned for by employer. So typically you do need to have the job offer, but these are two that you don't require that job offer. And the other thing that's interesting is that they could be applied for inside the US or outside of the US. They don't have to be here at the time. So keep that in mind. If you're currently here, you think you might be qualified for one of them, and you might be running out of status soon, you could always start the process here and finish it outside of the country. So individuals EB1A, individuals of extraordinary ability in the sciences, arts, education, business, or athletics, and the other one is the individuals who granted a national interest waiver. So let's talk a little, what are the general eligibilities? You either have to possess extraordinary ability, like we said, in the field of arts, science, education, business, or athletics, or granted a national interest waiver. And we'll go into each one of those a little bit more in detail. Valid passport, you need to have the supporting evidence to back up every requirement that we are supposed to prove. You don't need to be sponsored by an employer. And you could have a job now. And you could be an H1 or an L or some other visa. But this is for this to be approved, you don't have to have a job offer or be employed in that. But you should have experience in that field, so it should all make sense. And then to have served the national interest in a greater extent available than other U.S. workers available. So we the benefits are great, right? You don't have to be worried about the employer, what's going on with the market. You don't have to have your visa complete, tied to them. You don't have to wait for the labor certification process, which has been very stable and going well for a long time. But I think we're going to start seeing some more audits with the labor certification process because of the high unemployment and for U.S. workers, and they're going to really be questioning whether truly this employee is needed as the employer says so when they test the labor market, as they say. So the EB1A, this is sort of like considered like one of the pinnacles of the self-sponsored and in the green card world. You're usually walking in with very high accolades, with you've been in the field for probably more than 10, 15 years. Your resume is long. A lot of times I just want to say people are modest with their resumes. They don't list everything. I think, a lot of times they've told you keep it under certain pages or whatever. And that changes depending on the different fields, but and also how long you've been in your profession. But this is not the time to be modest. This is the time. I'll be talking to patent owners, people with lots of awards, and they're telling me their life story of their profession, and there's things missing from their CV or resume. I'm like, why is that not here? This is when you want to brag. Give me. Everybody has like different versions of their CV or resume for different purposes. You might take some stuff out, add some stuff in, and not keep everything. This is the time when you want to give, when you're having an attorney review your eligibility, every single thing, and then we're going to go in and we're going to see what really is needed for this purpose. And generally when we do consults, I think this is related to what we're talking about, we have the potential client, give us their resume, have a chat. We try to figure out which box we can put you in, and for immigration purposes, and then I continue to do some research and have a second follow-up, because I'm really being that bridge between the officer and your profession and your expertise, and trying to put that in layman's terms as to how you meet the requirements. So you need to demonstrate for the B1A you possess achievements that are not ordinarily obtained in your field. You're at the top of the top, the cream of the crop. You'd also show your skills would benefit the U.S. by intending you to come and work in the same field. We want to attract you to come here. We want you so we can stay on top of our game here in the US. So there's a list of different requirements and evidence that you generally would want to show. So if you've received a major internationally recognized award, such as an Oscar, Olympic medal, Pulitzer Prize, this can suffice as proof of extraordinary achievement. But not everybody has those, right? But in the absence, you can also show 10 other criteria, and then we need to have at least 3. Now, you don't want to just have the bare minimum, right? You want to have more than just 3. You want to go for the most that you have, but each one you have, you want it to be strong in that evidence. So here are just some of the ones that you want to show. Documentation of lesser internationally and nationally recognized prizes or awards for excellence in the field. And you might be like, oh yeah, I don't put that on my resume, or oh yeah, that thing, but it's really a big deal. You should still put it on there. As a self-employed person, I don't usually update my resume regularly, but we do have to keep it up for awards and things like that. And then we realize we're not putting everything that we should be putting on there. And it takes a little extra work. So I'm just reminding you about that. Documentation of your membership in prestigious associations in the field. Sometimes you have to be asked to be in a membership. Sometimes, if it's just a paid thing, or is it like you get asked, or is there like a certain different levels? Explain that to us and let us know. Publish material in major media or trade publications covering your work in the field, and publication that include the date, title, and author's name. A lot of times we go straight to, we ask about citations, and we go to Google Scholar to find out, where we when the consult to see how often you've been cited, and and if you've got something in the works that's being reviewed, let us know about that, because we could time this, because this takes time to put all this together, so that we submit it like right after that's done. You don't have to wait for perfection. Honestly, if you're starting to see that some of these apply to you, I would say to have a consult, and we can go over them, and then maybe we could time it that maybe you file in 6 months or a year when everything's in order. Additionally, evidence that you judge work of others in the field, evidence that you author scholarly articles in your field, publish in major trade publications, evidence of original significant scholarly, athletic, artistic, or business-related contributions, evidence that your work in the field has been displayed at major artistic showcases, so that's more in the arts realm, that you performed a critical leading role in reputable organizations in your field, evidence that you command a high salary. You can show that with proof of, we can look at comparable salaries in the field, proving that you're up at the top. We can do some market research to find that out, and that can be very helpful as well. And again, we said you don't have to have a job offer or a job to apply for this, but what usually happens is people are currently employed in this field, and they're looking to be self-sponsored because their company or entity doesn't do this. They don't do this, and they're wanting to be able to take it in their own hands. Or evidence of media that you, oh, my little just that you've been in the arts. Okay, so recap before we move on. Evidence of media successes in the performing arts. So you just need to have, if you don't have one of those proof of extraordinary achievements that sort of can knock it out, you're not having to do all of this, but Oscar, Olympic medal, Pulitzer Prize, so on. Those are hard to achieve. Kudos to those who have them. But if you don't have one of those, then you just need to have 3 or more. We're going more of these 10 things. And often, if you've been in the field for a while, and I mean, usually I'm seeing this after about 15 years or so, unless you're, you know, things you might be able to have accomplished it sooner. But and then we demonstrate every single thing that we're talking about here. We would be showing it with a proof of letters, awards, membership, articles, you name it, we would show it. Oh, just realized that my computer is not charging. Thank you. 1 second. All right. There we go. There we go. We are,
Some bloopers
yes,
during the webinar.
we are all fine now. Okay. Electricity, energy needed. Um, okay. So that's the EB1. Now we're moving on national interest waiver. So this is a category that qualifies individuals who've waived the requirement of labor certification, like we've been talking about, and it would be in the U.S. interest to have you come here. So this eliminates additional processing for the labor certification process. There is not a premium processing for the national interest waiver, but if you can prove that you are qualified enough to seek permanent residence and it's a national interest. So what are some of those examples? Some of them can include if you've invented a patent of ways to make the US more efficient and more healthy, save money, to be a leader in a different field of industry, of energy, of technology, security. If you can help us go up a notch or to help be a leader, help with you in our, on our side, we can be more of a leader in the world in a field, then that is what we're looking for. So it can even be if you're even in the oil and gas field, which here in Houston, even though we're located in Houston, we have clients that are all over the world and all over the US. But we can demonstrate that the technologies, the expertise will help us be more efficient in the energy space, and that's something that we need. We don't want this individual to be acquired by another country so that they can be a leader. So so this can be in lots of different fields. And what makes this a little different from the EB1A is that you don't necessarily, maybe you don't have as much years of expertise. Like maybe you've just been an expert in the last 5 or 10 years, but you're in this emerging field and that you are needed at this time. And so this gives a little bit more flexibility in that sense, but you have to tie it back to the national interest to be able to establish that. So usually we look at, and this is the EB2 category, and the visa bulletin, you have to look to see what country you're from and what the processing times. Sometimes people are eligible for both, but they decide which one they want to go for, EB1 or EB2, before they decide which one to go for. And the processing times can vary. So when we talk about both of these, and we're doing a high level overview about these right now, you can do consular processing, which is while you're outside of the country, and you can also do adjustment of status. Now, for I believe the next slide talks about the more or less the process. Now, if you are inside the country, you need to make sure that you have a valid status while you're pursuing this. Let's say it's an H-1B. If you are inside the country, you entered legally, you're in a status, it's allowing you to work in that field. Let's say you're an H or an L, which are both dual intent visas. And then you're getting started on this. So you're about to file that EB1A or that national interest waiver. You have to wait until it gets approved before, or that the visa is available to finish up the rest of the green card process. If we're filing an adjustment of status, you could file the national interest waiver EB1A with the adjustment if the visa is current, but a lot of times people file the first step to make sure that it gets approved before they file the adjustment of status. And it gets a little tricky, but you want to make sure that you're in status when the visa is available and you file the 485 before you do that. So I hope that makes sense in the general realm, but it is possible to have those two lanes going, being in a status as an employee like H or L, for example, and going for this green card self-sponsored. One thing that you could have other visas, but if they're not dual intent, um, then that can be a bit of a difficult timing wise. We just had a question about, can DACA recipients apply for these? You could. One of the things that would be, it goes along with what I'm saying, you've got to be very careful about status and unlawful presence issues. So if a DACA recipient, let's say they entered and they got DACA before they turned um, 18, before they create unlawful presence, it could be possible to do this. We would just really need to work on double checking that they've maintained their DACA, that they would be able to do, because for adjustment purposes, this is a little nugget. If you have more than 180 days of unlawful presence, you cannot adjust inside the country. And if you leave the country, you could trigger a bar. So that's really important to know. That 180 days, 6 months, you want to have less than that of unlawful presence. So that's where it gets a little tricky for DACA and for anyone who might have have gotten laid off and they need to file an extension. You have to keep an eye on your time. So to summarize this a little bit, we're going to go into consular processing in just a second. If you're in the country, you're in a status, and you've got the national interest waiver or AB1A in the background, you can have both of them going. It's ideal if the visa you're in is a dual intent visa, like an H or an L, and you just need to watch the processing time. If you're from a country that has a little bit longer processing time for EB1 or EB2 than that category, then that's going to be a little tricky because you're going to want to be keeping an eye on maintaining your status. But if something happens and you're like, oh no, I'm going to lose this job with this H or this L, and I'm going to have, and my processing time is taking too long, my priority date for my national interest waiver EB1A is taking too long, you could leave the country and wait and finish the rest of the processing. So that leads us to consular processing. So what it looks like, what we were talking about, is you would file the I-140. You could be filing it inside the country, outside, while you're outside the country, whichever one. You wait for the decision. So in consular processing, once I-140 gets approved, you'll get a National Visa Center notification to pay some fee bills, and you can submit the rest of the packet, which is the DS-260. Ask wherever you lived and worked since you were 16, any problems with the law, and depending on the packet, whether you need the I-64. In these cases, you don't need for employment matters. But and you submit all that, and then you're waiting for an appointment at the port, at the embassy or consulate. Now, under COVID, a lot of these matters have been delayed. For the most part, we haven't had many immigrant interviews since March. So there will be some delays there. If you're in a rush, this is probably not the best, but if you don't have another status, this might be your only option. And then once you have the appointment, you get a medical exam. And again, I haven't been talking really about family, but for these 45, once the principal gets the I-140 approved or has visas valid and it's current, they can include their spouse and their under 21 unmarried children. And so when we're working with NVC, we're dealing with, let's say, the spouse and let's say the children, for example, and we have to have a DS-260 for each one of those people. And then at the appointment, they'll all have medical appointment exams, and they'll all be screened for any other inadmissibilities. So it can get quite cumbersome. I definitely wouldn't try to do this on your own. Definitely would want to have an immigration experienced immigration attorney helping you. But at the end of it, at the appointment, if everything goes well, the medical, the knowing other inadmissibilities, they concur with the I-140 approval, everything, then you can get your visa and your passport, and you're given 6 months to enter the country. And once you enter, you get the stamp and you pay the little visa fee and you'll get your green card. So it sounds easier than I said, maybe, than it actually is. No, just kidding. It's doable. It's doable, and with the right help. And hopefully these consulates are going to start open up soon. So we're constantly watching them. Now, those are two that you can do more on let's say your merit, let's say your education, your expertise. But another concept would be about investment, and this would be the EB-5. So the minimum required is the 900,000. They recently had upped this, and this is if you invest in a targeted employment area. The other option is the 1.8 million in a high employment area. And the main point is that you're trying to create at least 10 US jobs within 2 years. And so it must be invested in commercial enterprise, and can be any of the following: sole proprietorship, corporation, holding company, lots of different shapes and sizes. The targeted employment area, or the high employment area, these are, you can look to, there's lots of different maps that can tell you, and reports that can tell you which one you can help do your research on those. Now, these are only given 10,000 a year. And just because you invest doesn't mean you're naturally going to get your money back. So that's part of what investment is that you're putting it at risk. So this is another possibility to keep in mind. And the other one we just wanted to throw out there as well is the diversity visa program. It opens up every fall for the fiscal year. And I think I had the, so basically they give out 50,000 visas. This is to randomly selected individuals who apply. Now, everybody who wins the lottery doesn't mean they're going to get a green card through it. The whole point of it was created to help diversify the immigrant pool that comes to the United States. And so the list of countries that are allowed to come differ depending on how many people are coming to the country from these countries. So the list, if you go to the State Department, you just maybe Google State Department diversity visa, you will find this. And so this list can change, but this is eligible for Diversity Lottery 2021. So what you do is there's an open window when you can put your hat in the ring. And if you'll find out if you're chosen, and that doesn't mean you win, like I said, it just means that you can continue through the process. They accept a lot more people than actually are going to get it in the long run. There's certain requirements. It's like having at least, I think it's like 2 years of experience or a certain amount of education, and you can't have overstayed in the US. You can never have any other inadmissibility problem like misrepresentation or fraud. You have to have a pretty clean reputation experience with the United States in the past. So here's some of the countries. Note Nigeria is not on here, but there's a lot of countries from Africa are listed. A lot of Asian countries are listed. The ones that have a high immigrant rate, like China, for example, are not listed on here. And it looks like Turkey is not on this list anymore. It used to be, or unless they put them under, it's under Europe, sorry. It still is. And so under Europe, lots of countries that don't normally immigrate to the United States. So then they sort of group you into those different regions of the world. And then you will monitor the number to see if you have been chosen when you get to apply. So let's, it might seem confusing, but a lot of people apply on their own to put their hat in the ring. And then if they're selected, then they monitor when they're allowed to submit either their adjustment of status or the rest of the consular processing. But everything has to be all done before the end of the fiscal year. So it can be quite a tight schedule, especially with the consular processing, with all the delays. I think there was a lawsuit actually that tried to recapture, give people an opportunity who missed it from the last fiscal year because of the delays that were happening. Now, again, just like with the other visas, if you're doing the adjustment of status, you need to be in some other type of visa. Here, you need to have entered legally, and so on. And when you can't file your 45 until the diversity lottery system tells you your number is up and timed for you to file, because they don't want everybody to file at the same time, and they stagger it. So this is another way to do it. And I guess the key takeaways is when you do put your application in, make sure that you tell the truth. Don't omit any children or spouses or any information. And just because, second thing is, just because you are selected doesn't mean that you're going to get the green card, unfortunately. So a lot of times people get selected and then they come talk to us for the rest of the process because they want to have an immigration attorney on their side through the rest of it and monitoring that and being ready with all the changes that are happening. So in conclusion, we're always willing to have consults on these. We do these types of cases. And, you know, this is definitely something, if you think if you're employed right now with an employer that's been having some rough times, and you see some layoffs in the horizon, you're not sure if your position is safe or not, this might be the time to have the consultation, because you're going to want to, I'm doing a lot of consults on plan A, plan B, plan C. You know, another thing is, if you have a spouse that has their own a dependent visa or their own independent visa, that can be helpful, because maybe they can find a visa that can cover you while you're pursuing these types of self-sponsored green cards. So we're always thinking outside the box. We're trying to think of all creative ways. And the good thing is that you can apply for this through consular processing if for some reason you're about to run out of status and you need to finish the rest of it abroad. We've done that before, and it's doable. So definitely consult with an immigration attorney. We're a little bit biased towards us, but, you know, basically make sure you've done your research, you feel comfortable with them, and you know, you feel a good connection, and they're able to have the bandwidth to help you in the timeline that you would like. And you know, often I'll have a consult with someone, and then they'll go off and work on something for about a year or something, and then they'll come back, and then we're ready to file. So that's completely normal too. In conclusion, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to let us know. Feel free to schedule a consultation with us. I do want to say, we've been talking about it this week. We did a video on the Powers Hour, but there's going to be a lot of changes under the Biden administration. There are going to be a lot of rollbacks of the harsh Trump administration's immigration policies. I read a number recently, there was 900 immigration changes. Um, I think explains a lot of why it's been so hard for us to stay on top of everything at every moment for you on your on your behalf. But also, there has been a reduction of almost 50% of legal immigration in the last 4 years, which makes a lot of sense of what's been going on. There's less options for people. So I think that we're going to see a reversal of that within the first 100 days under the Biden administration. Still 2 months until that happens at this recording, but we're going to start seeing that happen as quickly as we can. We have to be patient and give it time. These programs still exist, and I think we're also going to see some other visas. One of them is the startup visa, which is a great idea for people who might not qualify for the E2 because their country is not part of one of the treaties. And we didn't go into the E2. We didn't talk about some of those other ones. We were talking more about immigrant-based self-petitioning options today. And we did have a question said, is it possible to switch from asylum to investment green card? You know what? It's hard to answer that specifically without knowing your jurisdiction, because you had to have entered legally, stayed in the status before you applied for asylum. If you didn't maintain a status but except for that asylum pending, things get tricky about when if the asylum was denied if you haven't already switched to another visa. So that we could do a consultation on that. We need to see where you live and look at the timing of it all. There has been a split around the country of if a person entered legally, they applied for asylum before their status expired. Let's say the asylum was pending, and let's say they applied for a diversity lottery. I have a case just like that. In Austin, in that particular pattern, before the asylum decision had been made, the clients were approved. We know of some immigrants in Houston. There was a case where they were denied because of the interpretation. So it's not consistent, even within a 3-hour drive between San Antonio and Austin. I mean, sorry, Austin, which is under the jurisdiction of San Antonio, and Houston. Between that difference, there's inconsistency. Imagine it's all over the US, there's inconsistency. So what I would say is we would have to look at your specific matter, but also there could be a change in the future. Like I mentioned, there's been so many changes. I think that it's really smart to have 2 or 3 backup plans and to have a regular consult with an immigration attorney to be paying attention to what those changes could be happening. So before that question was asked, the bottom line is we should be seeing a lot of benefits, better pro-immigration policies, and an encouragement of investing in business in the United States, and and so on. Okay. There's another question we got. For diversity visa lottery, it specifies natives from particular countries are barred from entering. What if you're ethnically from one of the barred countries, but you were born and raised in a country that is eligible? Specifies natives from particular countries are barred. What if you're ethnically from one of the barred countries? I don't think it matters where you are ethnically from. I think it matters which one you have a citizenship from. We could take a closer look into that, but they're really focusing on citizenship because they have certain numbers of where they've allowed certain citizens from, and that's the ones that they don't have that many coming, they're allowing it. So also, if you have multiple citizenships, that could work in your favor. And also, like if you have a spouse that has different citizenships and one of those citizenships isn't one of the list of countries and they get it, then they could include you, because when you apply, if you're chosen, you can include your spouse and children under 21 unmarried. So we could take a closer look at that, but really it's more about your citizenship is what they care more about. When I was talking about asylum, there's another question about diversity visa and asylum. It's about the timing. If asylum has been denied, I think that closes up doors for diversity lottery if you haven't maintained another status. For example, some of our clients are an F1 status student and they apply for asylum, and then let's say they apply for a diversity lottery or they marry a US citizen. You could have multiple things running at the same time as long as they all sort of jive with each other, whether immigrant intent, non-immigrant intent. You need to pay attention to that and make sure that you meet the requirements of all the ones that have restrictions on them. So for example, we've had people who the F1 applied for asylum, got married to a US citizen. I'm just using that a little bit more. The reason why that's a little bit easier is because that can waive that on any unlawful presence time, depending on the timing between applying, entering the US, getting out of status and applying for asylum, or if you applied for asylum while you're in status. So maybe not to complicate things, the biggest thing is it's all about the timing of events. So when someone comes and talks to me, we have to look at, when did you enter? What was your status? When did you apply for asylum? Was there a result by the time that you can apply for maybe the diversity lottery, another green card process? So we really have to look to that, and we have to keep a pulse on all the constant changes that are also happening in the immigration space. And so bottom line, there's some options. Don't wait to the last minute. Keep your resume up to date, add more, brag about yourself. All true though. And make sure to have a competent immigration attorney review your status and look at the big picture. Maybe your spouse or child or somebody, maybe you're a US citizen, you didn't know it. You look at the big picture and see what we can do for you, and know that it might, just with having multiple backup plans, it might not be done overnight. Nothing in immigration is done that quickly. And also we're going to see a lot of hope in the horizon. I'm very positive about 2021 and the next 4 years. Even with COVID and the economy and immigration, if we can go back to the 100% possibilities instead of the only 50%, we're going to see a lot more options for everyone. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll let you take it away from here, Dana.
Awesome. Thanks again all for watching and sticking around. That's so awesome, and asking these questions. We're always so glad to help you guys out. And if again, you guys have any other questions more specific to your case, please feel free to give us a call right here at 713-589-2085. You guys can also send us an email or schedule a consultation on our website here at Ruby Powers, all right here on top of my head. And I'm going to put down below on the chat our next webinar. If you guys want to register for it, we're going to be discussing FOIAs. Let me see. It's going to be about FOIAs, FBI background checks, and where to find this information. And it's going to be a really good webinar. Ruby, do you want to give them a little scoop on that?
Well, the reason why we wanted to cover that is that a lot of people have already had an experience with immigration. They might have filed for something a long time ago, and they don't have a record of it, or they had an interaction with immigration and they don't know what happened. And unfortunately, I wish it was like Google, where we could just like do and find it, but it doesn't work that way. We have to send forms and mail them and ask for a copy of the file. A lot of these things are literally in caves in Missouri. I've visited one on a tour. I personally went for fun. I was so curious. And they have to pull the file, then they have to review it and redact it. Long story. So these things take time. And what we're seeing is that 2021 is a year of hope, a year of options. And we want people to dig up those files so that they're ready to file whenever we hear of some changes, like DACA reopens, they give us some other reform, whatever it may be. It's important to know your past so we can help make plans for the future. So that's the reason why we're doing that. And I will put a plug. We haven't decided the rest of December's webinars, have we, Dana? I don't think so. So if you have a preference for something, we're willing to talk about it. If it has something to do with immigration, we'll talk about it. So, and we got another question. What happens if it denied my tourist visa? Is there a problem applying again? If you got denied at a consulate, then usually we say try something different, wait about 6 months, but they will see that the denial happened before. There's some things to try to improve your chances of getting approved, but it also could depend on where you're applying from and the circumstances. But the really big key point is that they want to prove that you do not have immigrant intent, that you are planning to return to your home country, have a job, a mortgage, a family, a life to come back to. And so those are some of the key points, but it is possible to apply again. So just trying to squeeze that little question in there. But we do have the FOIA FBI webinar next week, and then we are open. We'll start announcing our December webinars soon, but if you have an interest, you can give us a call and tell us what you want us to do one on, or email us at contact@rubypowerslaw.com. So
yeah. So awesome. And if you guys missed any of our videos from the past, we always do these on every Friday. We be sure to stay up to make sure that the topic is relevant to the times. So check those out. You can find those on our YouTube, on our Facebook recorded videos, and even on our website. So check those out, share those with your friends, family,
yes.
Anybody.
That was exactly a question was being asked. We do record these and we post them up. later for people to review and to share.
Yeah, so check out our YouTube. Our YouTube is Ruby Powers Law. We stay on brand, guys. You guys know. And again, thank you all so much for watching. Again, if you guys have any questions in regards to your case, give us a call, and we hope to see you guys next week. And tune in for our Tuesday Power Hour. Those are really fun. We give little tidbits and talk. Sometimes we're joined by Attorney Cynthia Milian. Sometimes we're joined by Attorney Power. Sometimes we're joined by both. It's a surprise. Check us out. It's a fun time. And it looks like we got a quick little message right here, Ruby. It says, I have made a consult with you guys a while ago in regards to my asylum. But for tiempo terminamos la aplicación a la extensión de la visa. So this is in Spanish. So I'm trying to translate while I read, guys. It's for asylum, pero el tiempo terminamos aplicación a la extensión de la visa de turista for a tourist visa.
Yeah. So to asylum, but in the por el tiempo terminamos aplicando la extensión de visa. How about we go ahead and just, we'll feel free to give us a call, and then we can talk about it because we're closing up the webinar, and we can just go ahead and give us a call, and we can finish up that question at 713-589-2085. And if it's just a little follow-up from a prior consult, we'll just go ahead and talk to you about it. And we do that. I don't think we'd make a big deal about that, but we do. If we do free follow-ups within 2 weeks of a consult, because we're really trying to make sure we have the right strategy for everyone and we give them the right answer. So, okay, well, yeah, please give us a call, the last question, so we can go ahead and just answer that quick question. All right, well, thank you so much.
Thank you all so much, and we hope to see you all next Friday and at the Powers Hour. Bye, y'all have a great rest of your day and a weekend.
Thanks, bye.